My wife cheated with her team leader, abandoned our kids, and left the house, but came back asking for forgiveness. So I kicked her out, divorced, and ghosted. This is my story. I have been with her for 8 years, 7 years married. We have 2 beautiful kids together. I had more upside than there were issues, and this was the time we were looking best. D-Day was 12th of November. She came home late, all drunk, and when I confronted her, she says that, "I've been scared to speak up for the last 2 months, and I don't love you the way I used to anymore. I'm ready to leave my kids as well as, I just need happiness." I call her brother that very night and ask him to take her home before I lose it. Next morning, I'm pleading her to return and work on the relationship. This is where she starts to feed on my desperation. She returns and picks her stuff and leaves. For the entire month, I'm begging her to return. She confessed going out with her team leader. I had no clue, but as per her, the marriage has been dead for years and all signs point to a fair fog. We saw the first motion on the 10th of December, and I had decided to divorce her with prejudice. This is when I decided to go full no contact with her. Her approach has since changed, and she is finding it difficult to walk in the house as I am now with mother who is supporting me in this. I think there is guilt. She has also been finding ways to get me out to meet her. These could be genuine, but desperation is there. She has not been visiting kids as well. Good thing is, me and my kids are doing well now. Kids have no clue what happened, and I keep them super busy. Is this long, and her change in approach, meaning the fog is fading? I have done everything to shake her, which is throwing her out and get the first motion behind. Gone full no contact. Kids hardly speak to her on the phone. I am supposed to meet her in the bank and then in March for final proceeding. I hope she is still in the fog as that gets me my freedom and new start without hassle. She has signed such a bad deal. Any suggestions to how to proceed with it? How can I keep the fog going for a couple more months? Vape Life says. Unfortunately, liars and cheaters are volatile people. I had a similar situation and had to move fast through the process. I got scared at one point because soon Vape's wife had a fight and broke up with a fair partner right when we were supposed to be signing the agreement. Ultimately, she expressed some concern as she started realizing how many questions she left for her own future, but thousands have been spent to put the agreement together and she signed. Her and a fair partner continued their now volatile relationship for the moment. Turns out, she is not as fun when you can't send her home after the fun part. The Opie replies, "She is volatile. She is behaving all crazy since I went no contact, blocking mine and kids' Netflix account. That's all she had. She has been a compulsive liar all through the relationship, but never thought that would trigger a fair fog. I thought her lies were minimal to not hurt me, and I was so wrong. So much to learn when I marry again." Update. Just a quick update from my previous post. I met her in the bank. She walks in, pretends that she doesn't want to look at me, but when I am looking elsewhere, she's reading my body language. I was prepared, said hello, and proceeded to take her name off the mortgage. She walked out of the bank and I said bye and walked away. All this happened for 20 minutes and except for signing, she didn't say a single word. From a distance, I could see she's on the phone after this episode, and I think it should be the fair partner, giving details of what happened. This incredible change in behavior from all energy when I was begging and pleading has changed to hate and frustration when now I am showing signs of putting this divorce through at my comfort. It's so hard to read these people, but definitely frustrated that I have stepped back and don't care about her. This relationship was built on hate for me. The other day on WhatsApp, she said I have made this ugly and I wanted to do this clean, blaming me something she can't articulate. Kranik has some advice. It is just hard for her to articulate that she hates it that you let her go and are not acting like a doormat, running after her all the time and telling her that your life is worth nothing without her, because that is what she expected from you. So now she is angry because she is not only not getting what she wants, she is also faced with the truth that she lost the life she had. The meeting at the bank and taking her name off the mortgage was the first hard reality check for her. She begins to realize that you won't run after her, that you are not begging, and that she can't come back easily, which she probably expected to happen on the day when she moved out. Her new life will implode really quickly since her discontent can translate into her affair. New relationship. I just hope that it won't implode before the D papers are signed. Be aware of her suddenly starting to be nice to you, or telling you that she made a mistake. When that happens, then she only wants you to run after her because she gave you some hope. If that happens, then the best you can do is to tell her that she made her decision and that she hoped that she will find the life she wanted so much. Before you turn around and leave, do your friends, especially mutual friends, know about why she left you? If you got another reality check from them, then that could also be a reason for her message to you. Update. We were wife wants me to respect her. This just happened. We were wife wanted to check something on divorce documents, which was in plain old English. I asked her to read again, and she still played dumb so that I can explain it to her. I ended up explaining it to her, and then asked her to bug off. She responded by saying, "Why do you have to be so disrespectful unnecessarily?" I couldn't stop laughing. It is coming from a woman who was pure evil to me in the last couple of months. I still managed to take another dig and ask her to check what they have hair partner as she is boring me and irritating me. Earned an instant block on WhatsApp. Feel good ran if that's a thing. Update. Got caught in. Narcissistic. We were wife's orbit after doing so well for the last couple of months. So are the blue she calls me up and I disconnect her call. She wants her to only speak to me via texts. She wanted certain documents related to divorce hard copy. I asked her to speak to my lawyer and she replies by saying, "Stop playing these games with me." I got upset and took my frustration out by stating that you have not been looking after your kids, and the other day my boy said, his mother doesn't love him. She replied, and I quote, "And talking of the kids, your life is still the same. Mine has changed drastically. So have some respect once I'm back on my feet. I will get that thing sorted." When I erupted and lashed on her for what she has done, she continued to blame me for the toxic relationship, etc. Just a couple of hours ago, I picked my kids up and saw her, and it just triggered me so bad that I ended up smoking 4 cigarettes. I exposed all her lies as she continued to shift blame. Dang, I should have maintained full silence like I did before. Feel so bad. Anyways, I texted her to speak to my mom for kids and lawyer for divorce. I ain't making the same mistake now. Update. Is my wayward wife using my daughter as a spy? What do I make of it, and how should I respond? A few hours back, I picked my daughter from her mom's place. My 7-year-old daughter is now telling me that her mom was asking questions like 1. Does someone come late at night to visit dad? 2. What do I have to say about her? 3. How well does he keep you? 4. What are you saying about when will mom return? To protect my kids, I have been very careful in what I have told them and taking advice from counselors. I'm confused and irritated, but don't know what to do. Update. 17 days following the initial post. It's over. Wayward wife has been divorced. So this is how it has ended. I signed first motion late last year after wayward wife left home, me and kids for an affair. I decided to divorce her and maintain no contact. I did seem well in no contact as she may have called at least on 8 occasions to Hoover and it didn't answer a single call and preferred to speak to her over texts. She would reply stating she wants something to do with her kids or her stuff left at home. Much of it didn't make sense to me. My boundaries were formidable and she couldn't break through. Day for second motion arrived and I had to make my lawyer call her up to get her to court.
Yang.
She had no energy like she had it at the start of the affair. She walked like she was crawling. I had gained around 20 pounds. Earlier, she would at least call the kids on a video call once in a while, but now she has stopped doing that as well. She now calls them like twice a week. Nothing like how she was before. I don't know if depression has her now, or she is playing victim card, or if her affair has exploded, but she didn't look well and divorce was done even before she had any clue. I feel bad for the kids right now, but hopefully I will be in a better place one day when my family will be complete again. Edit. Just to be clear, I don't plan to marry my ex when I say complete the family. Update. Ex-wife called my best friend and took my boy away just before his 6th birthday. D-Day was November 21st. Immediately filed for divorce and separation. I was officially a single father of 2 kids by July 22nd. Go through my history if you would like to get details. Here I am now. I've been raising both my kids with my elderly parents. My mom is in decent health and shape, and she stays at home looking after my kids. My dad plays his part in taking my daughter for swimming, and son for his activities while I'm at work. Kids have no complaints today. I'm not dating yet, but I have no complaints as life is better. I went no contact immediately after D-Day, and any attempts by her to contact me were futile. In the past, She even asked my mom to ask me to call her for stupid reasons, and sometime in December 22nd, she realized that I was not giving in. Now, 5 to 6 months later, she took my boy just a couple of days before his 6th birthday. I then had to speak to my son to wish him on his birthday through my mom's phone. I couldn't see my son on his birthday. I hated the fact that she was holding the phone while I spoke to my son. She does absolutely nothing for them. Now, she contacted my best friend and discussed things like my finances, company he is working for, and some other things that make no sense. She was lying all the way to extract as much details as she could. For example, she made up a story that her credit score went down as I missed my mortgage payments. Not true. In fact, I had a call as recently as a few months ago where the recovery agents were asking me to get her to pay for her credit card. Am I in trouble in the coming days, months, or years? She's an absolute narcissist that I can confirm. Edit. Oops, forgot to mention. She's going to meet my friends soon is what she mentioned at the end of the call. RobbBMT says, is she meeting your best friend? Is he going? Because if he is, that's not a real best friend. The OP replied, he is my best friend. He called me immediately and told me everything. In fact, wanted to record her call for me. He would never go if I said no. I have known him since my school days. RobbBMT says, what's the point of them meeting up then? The OP replies, my friend never agreed, nor did he say no. He just wanted to hear and tell me things. It was more on a casual note that we worked close so we can always meet. I introduced her to him, and he is like a family friend. He hates her for what she did to the kids and was far more angry when she took the kids away on my son's birthday. My wife cheated on me after I broke 2 bones and said she wasn't sorry, so I made sure she was. Hey guys, I, 40 male, have been married to my Christine, 39 female, for about 10 years now, and we have 1 child, my lovely daughter who is 9 years old. Like any marriage, we've had her ups and downs. A lot of downs, to be honest, but we come through everything fine. There's been no infidelity, but there has been a basis for trust issues. On both our parts, I will admit. However, in the last 2 years or so, I've done my best as a husband, and I think I've maintained a good record. My wife and I have a good life in the bedroom. We're getting older, but things haven't dropped off too significantly from back when we met. I've always been very thankful for that much, because I have been involved with women who might as well have been celibate, and it was frustrating to say the least, because no amount of communication fixed anything. So a woman who actually wants to roll around in bed is a blessing to me. I owned a business before I met my wife, and when we got married, she eventually joined me at the helm to run things. About 2 weeks ago, I got into an accident on my way to work. I got T-boned at a red light and woke up in the hospital with a broken femur and humerus. Yeah, needless to say, that wasn't fun. Once it was certain there wasn't any internal damage, I was let home in 2 days with a cast on my arm and my leg. Obviously, my movement was impaired quite a lot, but I was able to find my way around the house with a lot of stumbling and leaning on things. Of course, there were certain things I was unable to do, and Christine had to help me with them. For about the first week, she seemed to be fine with it, and every time I asked her if it wasn't too much of a burden, she'd say no with a big smile. However, once I crossed over into the second week, I started to notice a bit of change in her attitude. To be honest, when I said our life in the bedroom is good, it's really good, and we usually don't go a full week without anything going on. So my first assumption was that it might have been because of that, especially because I was starting to feel my body craving it too. Again, when I asked her if I was being a burden, she said no. But this time she seemed more short with me. I asked her straight up whether it was because of the lack of action between us, but she said it wasn't and left the room promptly after that. At that moment, I really felt it was, but I felt like being married as long as we were, she'd be able to answer me truthfully with a question like that. My mouth and one of my hands still work, so I feel like we'd be able to work things out. I mean, I had the urge to ask her to help me blow a load, but she's already doing a lot for me, so I decided not to bother, at least until I can't take it anymore. Now here's the thing. Yesterday, she came back home after managing the business on my behalf that day, and she was very clearly in a much better mood than she was all the other days, like I could describe her mood as bubbly. Now, I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but since I feel like her mood before was because we couldn't be intimate, I'm suddenly overthinking whether she was able to get somebody else to take care of that side of things for her. I mean, she's never cheated on me, Does anyone ever know for sure? And apart from that sudden change in her mood, I wouldn't have anything else to use to suspect her. But she could have had a massage or heard some good news. But talking to her, there didn't seem to be any obvious reason for her sudden happiness. So, before I do anything rash, not like I can with the way I am right now, I want to hear all of your opinions. Should I try and do some digging? Or should I just assume that she was just happy for some other reason? I mean, I feel like I might be jumping to conclusions after such a long time knowing each other. But let me know what you all think, please. Update 1. Hey everyone, it's been about 3 weeks since my last post, but I'm back with an update. A lot of you said I should go ahead and check her phone. Partners should be allowed to check each other's phones if they have nothing to hide. I know she can check mine as much as she wants because I've never had anything to hide. Well, I eventually did check and boy, did I find things? Anyway, I wasn't about to ask her to hand it over because that would give her the chance to delete any evidence. I had to gain access to it at a time when I would have enough time to search all through things and potentially save any proof I found. Just so you know, after that day when she was all happy, she slowly went back into a mood and then just another day was all bubbly again. It was the third time that she came back all happy that I got my chance. She was chewing gum, but I was sure I could smell a slight scent of booze following her. She also didn't kiss me as she got back home, but she was happy. I think it might have been whatever she drank, but it didn't take long for her to fall asleep and she left her phone right beside her in bed. I never checked Catherine's phone before, but I was very anxious as I did it because I was scared she could wake up at any moment and I'd have to start trying to explain myself. But the anxiety from not knowing whether she was cheating on me was honestly a lot worse, so I pushed through. There were no photos or videos of her with anyone unusual, but it was when I went to her messaging app that I saw an unread message from an Alex, and squinting at the profile picture, I saw it was the same Alex I knew that worked for me. The thing is, this normally wouldn't have been an issue since she was manning the workspace at the moment, but the message was, "Got in home with a kiss emoji at the end." I opened the message immediately, despite the last one being on read, and I went through everything up until the point where I had the accident. Things were very formal until about a day before the day that my wife had come home all bubbly the first time. She had started flirting with her heavily, and she returned the energy. He must have gotten some kind of green light at work that day to come on strong. And so it just made it clear how little I knew while I was at home recovering. I noticed that on the 3 occasions that my wife had come back in a brighter mood, Alex always asked her if she had gotten home, but he never did that on other days. Between those days, there was some flirting here and there, but nothing extreme, though it might as well have been. I took several pictures with my phone and put her phone back. This was about 2 days ago, and I really don't know what to do. She didn't seem any different the next day, so I don't think she suspected I touched her phone, probably because she was tipsy, but I really don't know what to do. I have all the evidence I need to come to a very solid conclusion that my wife has cheated on me with my employee at least 3 times. But how do I proceed from here in a way that actually makes sense? Do I just say divorce and figure everything out from here? The thing is, I feel so hurt. We haven't had a super rosy marriage, but for the most part, it has been good. I've never seen a fear of mine, but after I have an accident, that's when she decides to cheat on me. I've struggled to act normal around her, but I really don't know if I can take it any longer. I need this to end, but I can't let it just end with a divorce. I need more than that. I need to feel satisfied. Please, I've been trying to think of things I can do, but my mind is failing to put 2 thoughts together. I'll be waiting to hear what advice you all may have for me. Update 2. Wow, time flies. It's been a long time since my last update, but after posting it, I think I must have read through every single comment there. Thank you to everyone for all the kind words and suggestions, and I have to say, they certainly contributed to my approach. The first thing I did was to find a divorce lawyer. I didn't pay a routine right that time, but just wanted to know what I could do about his services. At that point, I stupidly still felt like there could be an explanation for what I had read on her phone, so I decided to confront her before making anything final. It was a bit easier for me to move around on my own. So I told her that I wanted to follow her to work to see how things were going and say hi to the employees. She tried to weakly convince me to just stay at home and that she had everything under control. But at that point, I knew nothing was going to stop me from going. So about an hour later, I was in the passenger seat and we were heading to our business location. Most of the guys were super happy to see me, Alex included, though he seemed a lot more awkward than the rest of them. My wife also didn't seem to be super happy that I was there. Towards the end of the workday, I called for Alex to come into my office, and I did that when my wife was somewhere close by. I noticed her freeze up as I did that, and she actually followed Alex into my office, which she normally wouldn't do if it was anyone else, but I didn't tell her to leave. Most of them seemed shifty, though I might have been imagining it. I only asked Alex something about a client we had been dealing with before the accident happened, and I could actually see the fear disappear from his body as he realized I was just asking about something relatively trivial. Once the day ended, I headed back home with my wife, and she was slightly talkative, maybe because she realized, or at least assumed, that she hadn't been found out. I felt like I had more than enough suspicion at that point to be very direct with her, and I decided that I would do it the next day when she returned from work. That's fortunate for me. The next day was another one of those days where her mood seemed to be better than usual, which triggered me because it made me assume she had just been intimate with my employee just minutes before. She was probably made bolder because she felt she had confirmation that I didn't suspect it one bit, but that was just part of what gave me the courage to confront her minutes after she walked in. I asked her to sit across from me, and I asked her to straight up, "Are you cheating on me with Alex?" She froze, but it wasn't for long, and then she said yes. Right after that, she stood up and headed towards the kitchen. I told her to sit back down and that I wasn't done, but she still went to the fridge to get a silly yogurt cup, and only then did she come back. Honestly, I could already tell that she didn't seem to be remorseful based on her behavior. Why? Why did you think that was a good idea? And then she went into explaining how she has needs as a woman and I wasn't providing those needs for her. I pointed out right there that I had been in a freaking accident. I still had casts on, and her major concern was that there was no sex. I told her that if she had told me how dire her needs were, we could have found a way to sort things out, at least until I was healed, but she only shook her head and said it wouldn't have been the same. Honestly, in that moment, I was actually lost for words. I was expecting crying and pleading an obvious guilt, but the stupid woman in front of me was trying to justify her cheating. I asked her directly whether she was sorry, and she told me no. She repeated again that she had needs and I couldn't provide them, and that wasn't her fault that she wouldn't deny herself pleasure because I had gotten herself T-boned by an SUV. Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I lost all cool that I had at that moment. I struggled my feet and walked over to her in an intimidating way. I didn't raise a fist or anything, but as I approached her, she stood up and shoved me hard. I lost balance and hit our wooden coffee table on the way down. I hit my shoulder. Nothing was broken. I confirmed eventually, and I lay on the floor in pain. A few minutes later, I heard the front door close and her car start up and drive away. Yeah, my wife definitely assumed to be X, knocked me over, and didn't even check if I was okay. I literally had 2 casts on. It was a few minutes before I could struggle up onto the couch, and my shoulder was in a lot of pain. The first thing I did was call the police because I actually lost all respect and love for her in that moment. I was seeing red. Apparently, the noise of our argument had woken up my daughter, and she was hiding near the top of the stairs when she saw me get pushed. She started crying when she saw me in pain, and it broke my heart. She kept asking what had happened between me and her mom, but I really didn't know what to tell her. Eventually, the police came, took a report from me, and I was taken to the hospital, along with my daughter for an X-ray, though fortunately, there was no lasting damage to my shoulder. I mean, considering I was on the way to recovery, I'd have been pissed if I broke something else. As soon as I got back home that night, I put my daughter to bed and sent a message to the divorce lawyer, telling him that I was ready to go ahead with things. Christine hasn't come back home in the 3 days since that happened, and I haven't even contacted her. My daughter keeps asking where her mom is, but I had to make up a stupid excuse that she went to visit her sister. At this point, it's actually war, and I think I have everything I need to have things collapsed for Christine. She wasn't sorry for cheating on me, but my goal is to make her sorry. Final update. As I'm writing this, which should be the final update in my story, I'm doing so with a big smile on my face. I know it has been months since my last update, but if you're big fans of the sensation we call Schadenfreude, you're going to like this one. I know I do. The first thing that I did was send text messages to every single one of my Christine's relatives that I knew, from her parents to a cousin that I had only met twice. I even sent it to the friends whose numbers I had because I was pissed. I didn't write a single thing that wasn't true, and I even sent them the pictures I had taken of the flirting between her and Alex back then. Some of them responded, and some of them didn't. The ones who responded were more sympathetic, and I assumed most of those who didn't were on Christine's side. My job there was done. Whether they took her side or not, I made sure her sleazebag behavior was well documented. After that, I went into work and I met Christine there. She was shocked to see me, probably thinking I was too crushed to do anything. It was barely 10 seconds before I pointed to her and Alex, the employee she had been cheating on me with, and told them they were both fired. She used to be my wife, but she was merely an employee. Her name was nowhere in the paperwork from the business, and I'm glad I had never brought her in on that extent. Alex was surprised by the thudness of it all, but he couldn't argue because he knew he was guilty. He had worked for me for 3 years, and he was surely going to have a fun time trying to use me as a reference for whatever his next job was going to be. Meanwhile, Christine looked furious. She walked up to me. Honestly, I was scared I was going to get hit again, though that would have worked nicely for me. And when she was at arm's length, I spun the divorce papers on her. Her face turned red because our employees were there, but I didn't care. She snatched the papers from me and marched out of the place. The rest of the day was awkward, and I had to deal with a lot of cursing and text from her later, once she realized the full extent of people I had told about her cheating. Again, my story doesn't end there. It still gets good. You remember the assault? I had a police report and a hospital report, and I went to the police station at the close of business to report things. I told them I wanted to press charges. To skip through things a bit, my divorce lawyer was able to help me structure the case beautifully as a complete bonus. And considering this came after I confronted her for cheating, she was unremorseful. I was injured. She left me there, and my daughter witnessed it. She got a week in jail and mandatory anger management classes. I hate that my little girl had to get a bit involved, but for me, it was worth it. The criminal record gladdened my heart. Then, we got to the actual divorce proceedings. These lasted a long time, especially because Christine was being extremely stubborn throughout the thing. But ultimately, it was a breeze, because there was way too much document proof of bad behavior on my ex-wife's part. I mean, she had assaulted me, which she didn't deny. She had cheated on me, which she didn't deny. And she was very clearly unremorseful about either one of them. My daughter had to see her father assaulted, and again, that killed me. Now, I did mess up by firing her before I finalized the divorce, so I do have to pay a manageable amount of alimony, but only for 5 years. She's not a part of the business I built from the ground up. I have custody of my daughter because her mother's ability to control her temper and not bring strange men around my daughter is in question, and I get to keep the house because, well, I've ruined my little girl. I got to expose my wife's behavior to all her friends and give her a shiny criminal record. I honestly didn't set out to do all this, but she made it work for me since she's just naturally a horrible person. I wish I had seen it earlier, but it is what it is. I'm just glad the story is over and my daughter is safe with me. Life goes on, and I'll try and rebuild eventually, but for now, I'm happy with the way things went, and I hope you all are too. Edit. By the way, Alex had apparently the balls to put my name down as reference, and I made sure to professionally outline all his shortcomings as an employee, including the fact he may try to be inappropriate with the female partners of high-ranking employees. It was a fun to hear. Oh wow. Thank you for letting us know that. For the person on the other end, I guess no evil goes unpaid. My wife cheated at her friend's wedding and got exposed with a STD report. So I got my divorce and kicked her out of my house without a penny. I, 56 male, discovered that my wife, Renee, 51 female, got an STD test after returning from her friend's exotic wedding. She has kept this test a secret from me for many months, and all these indicate nothing but cheating to me. Sorry for jumping to the conclusion without any solid evidence and confrontation, but as a couple, there are certain things that don't need to be told up front. It's kind of understandable. Let me give a background about us. We've been married for 13 years with no kids. She's my first wife, but I'm her second husband. She was married in her 20s and has a daughter who is now 23. Renee's first marriage crumbled in just 5 years because her ex-husband turned abusive and she fled with her daughter. She raised her daughter as a single mom. When we got married, I adopted her daughter as my own. She is a lovely being. I sponsored her education and everything. She took up an executive job after college and has been living in Manhattan since then. I was a live-in relationship with my college girlfriend until my mid-30s, but eventually we broke up and she moved out. For months back, Renee went to her friend's wedding. Her friend was getting married to a rich businessman. By rich, I mean filthy rich, the one who kind of owns a private yacht and all that stuff. The guy is in his 70s, but who cares if you can spend your winters in the Bahamas? Anyways, not judging anyone here. I deliberately skipped the wedding. Renee was already obsessed over her friend's extravagant wedding and debt-ending it with her mint, putting up with Renee's constant eye rolls as her friend showed off her husband's richness. So, Renee goes to the wedding, comes back, and rants about her friend as a gold digger and how she found that rich man to marry. It was quite expected. She rants for a few days and then we move on. Fast forward to now. I got a runny nose and symptoms indicate flu, so I look up to consult a doctor online. Then I realize that Renee got a membership of a fitness app where she gets free physician consultations. I downloaded the app and logged in using her email ID. She gets a verification code. I don't remember where she was at the time, but she wasn't around. I called the out for her, but she didn't answer. I saw her phone lying on the kitchen counter and took the code from her phone. I made an appointment with the physician, consulted him, and then headed to get the meds with the prescription. Everything goes normal. The pharmacy guy asked me if the doctor had recommended any tests. I said yes, but let me try with the meds first. He insisted that I take the test as well because the flu was spreading quite commonly in our neighborhood. I came back home and booked the test through the same application. While doing that, I found the history of tests booked through that application. There I found that Renee had undergone an STD test after returning from her friend's wedding. Why would she do that? It was the first thing that came to mind. I remember that after coming back from the wedding, she went to visit her daughter and stayed there for a week. I didn't suspect it a bit at the time, but now all of this is adding up. I hate to say this, but she definitely did something wrong in her friend's wedding, not tested after returning, and then to avoid any sexual contact with me, she headed off to her daughter's place for a week. I reviewed the report, and it was negative. That was yesterday. In the night, after dinner, Renee asked me if I had logged into the app using her email ID. I said yes, and it took the authentication code from her phone because she wasn't around. I was expecting her to flip out, but she didn't say anything. She later did something that made me log out of the app. I didn't notice that until the next morning, which is today. I headed to the diagnostic center for the test, and there I was trying to show the appointment using the app, but I was logged out. She had changed her login email ID as well. It was just so dang annoying. Thankfully, they had registered the appointment in their system, so I was able to proceed with the test. I came back home to have a full-blown confrontation, but she isn't home now. I called her to ask where she was. She didn't respond. Instead, she texted that she's had her mother's and would be late. Now, I don't know how to channel my anger and frustration. I know for sure that she has cheated on me, but a part of me is still up to listen to her and wants to believe that I'm wrong. Update 1. Hello, everyone. Thanks for connecting with me. Talking to you folks during these anxious hours really helped me calm down. Trust me. So let me fill up from where I left off. Renee didn't come home that night. She's left over to her mother's place. Obviously, I got restless. I wasn't able to sleep that night thinking about all sorts of possibilities. The next morning she came, and I just couldn't stop myself. I asked her why she was avoiding me, and why did she retrieve my access from the application. She acted as if she had no clue what I was saying. I yelled that I knew she had taken an STD test after returning from her friend's wedding, and I also knew what that meant. She said I was accusing her unnecessarily, and that test meant nothing but a routine checkup. Though I had no evidence apart from that report, my gut feeling said she had cheated on me, so I spoke with my instinct that I knew what she was hiding. Our fight escalated, where she played victim that I was falsely accusing her of cheating, and I pestered her to confess. I got to a point where I threatened to inform her mom and daughter about the tests. I also told her that I would contact her friend and tell her that she slept with her husband. It was silly of me, but the situation got so ugly that I had lost my mind. After several rounds of shouting, manipulations, breaking down, she finally confessed after 2 days. Those 2 days were nightmares for me. She confessed that she had hooked up with a stripper at her friend's bachelorette party. She said the most classic line a cheater says after being caught. It didn't mean anything. There were no emotions attached. Sure, but my emotions do get hurt if she opens her legs for others, even if it is just for fun. I left the house and went to my office. I have a small consultancy business. It was Sunday and no one was there. It was a safe place for me to calm down. She called and texted me apologizing, but it meant nothing to me. I lived in the office for a week. I looked miserable. Everyone noticed that I wasn't going home and wearing the same clothes and a few gym t-shirts I had in my car trunk. So I went home. Renee was there, asking me what I was going to do next. She requested that we move on from that and promised that she would never do it again. I said our relationship can never be the same. I wasn't in the right state of mind to make any decision. I told her that I needed time to think it over or even to move on, and during this time I wanted to be left alone. I suggested that she move out and live with her mom or her daughter. Renee was not ready to move out at all. She pleaded with me for one last chance to fix the marriage. She said she was ready to do everything but move out. She suggested that we spend time together, go on dates and vacation to bridge the cracks that had popped up in our marriage. Spending time with her was the last thing I wanted to do after knowing the truth. I took some time to think about it, but my conscience didn't allow me to take her back. I shifted my stuff to the guest bedroom with minimum to no communication with her. After a few days, she came to check on my decision, and I told her that I was not willing to take her back. She insisted that we try once, but I refused. I told her that even living in the same house was not working out for me, and I would be moving out if she didn't leave. She was still adamant about not leaving the house and insisted on giving a shot to our marriage. I was done relaying my stand, so I just packed up my stuff and left. I checked into a motel for a few days and hunted for cheap rentals. One of my distant friends had put up his house for a short-term lease. I took that and moved into his one-bedroom condo. Since then, I have been living alone. Yeah, also one more thing. One gentleman recommended on my last post that I should get tested because some filthy virus might have traveled through my wife. I did that, and thankfully it has come out to be negative. Renee contacted me initially, but then blocked her and asked her never to contact me. She told her daughter that I had abandoned her for some silly reason. She reached out to me trying to reconcile things between us. I avoided giving her the reason, but eventually I sensed that she was turning bitter towards me. Renee had been feeding her lies, so I told her the truth. She is an adult and understands things. She said she would never pester me to take her mom back and would love me whatever I decide. She was angry at Renee for jeopardizing our stable marriage for a moment of fun. I told her that I would never ask her to choose between me and Renee. I loved her, and she was my daughter despite any change in dynamics between Renee and me. She is in touch with me and regularly to check on me, but we avoid any conversation about Renee. I guess that's how I'm moving on with my life. Update 2. Hello all. This time I have an interesting update to share. Last month, I got a call from Renee's friend, Lily, 49 female. The same friend in whose wedding Renee FD up our marriage. She gave me very unexpected news. She told me that Renee had been making advances on her rich husband. Yes, it made me crack up. Renee befriended him on social media, flirted with him, and even sent him her nudes. I'm not judging that man at all, but he fell for her and reciprocated her advances. Even went on a vacation together in some island country. I forgot the name. All this was going on for over 3 to 4 months, but Lily got to know about this only recently. I told her about our separation. She didn't know about it. Lily was disappointed because she wanted to partner with me to take revenge on Renee. I asked her what about her husband. He's equally guilty. She said she wouldn't leave her husband, not so easily. Currently, she was behind Renee and wanted my help. I said sure. I can help her with anything she needs, but I'm not going to run behind Renee for any investigation or so. I don't want to scratch my wounds which took so many months to heal. She said it was cool and she understood. She would reach out if she needed any help. What happened next was Renee goes on dates with Lily's husband, but Lily was tracking her husband's phone and she got them red-handed in a hotel room. Renee had the audacity to get into a scuffle with Lily, calling her a gold digger and stuff like that. Lily didn't give up and filed a case of physical assault on Renee. Her husband also sided with her because obviously she was the wife, and not choosing her would mean divorce, and it would have cost him a fortune. Renee was left alone. The hotel staff also gave their statement against Renee because Lily had money to bribe the staff and Renee had none. As per Lily, Renee was the one who first charged her, but she got back a hard punch from Lily which left her with bruises. The hotel authorities called the cops. Renee was left free with a small fine and a warning to stay away from them. God knows what had happened to this woman. She again sneaked into their garage and damaged Lily's car. She was so stupid that she didn't even check the camera before entering the campus. Her actions were caught on camera and Lily got her booked under trespassing and damaged her property. This second incident I got to know from Renee when she called me to bail her out. Initially I wanted to hang up on her, but then she pleaded that she had no one else to help her out and I was the only one she could count on. I bailed her out and she said she would pay me back the penalty amount. She also requested not to disclose this to her daughter and I nodded. I asked her what she was up to, and she said she was securing her future. Apparently I had ditched her, securing the future by chasing a friend's husband. She said yes, she had no other way. Lily had also done the same. She had also chased this rich man and made him divorce his wife of 20 years, and Renee was also doing the same with Lily. It was just so sick to hear all of this. I went home and told Lily about Renee's plan. I felt like a witchy schoolgirl for doing this, but Renee was wrong here in chasing someone's husband, and I had to do this. Not that I enjoyed it, but the cat fight between these two friends was amusing. I mean how both of them lured this old rich man to secure their future. I wanted to congratulate this rich man's ex-wife that she was out of this rat race. A couple of days ago, Renee called me asking for divorce. Not that I was not thinking about the divorce, but I was deliberately delaying it for two reasons. First, I don't plan to marry ever again, so it doesn't matter if I'm not officially divorced as of now. Second, Renee would have demanded a lot. I mean, I own a business apart from the house in which Renee is living. I have an ancestral house which would be divided between me and my sister. Just after the separation, I had discussed all this with my lawyer, and he suggested that I update my will. Removing Renee is descendant of my property, so that had been taken care of. Even if we don't divorce and something happens to me, Renee won't get a penny. Renee had a long list of divorce terms which included the house and maintenance for a year, apart from the huge chunk as an alimony. She said she wanted a divorce so that she could marry Lily's husband without any tussle. Apparently, he has promised Renee that he would divorce Lily provided she gets divorced from me first. I said I would discuss this with my lawyer and get back. The discussion is still on, and I'll make the update once this is sorted. Update 3. The divorce is done and Renee doesn't get anything at all. Lily and her husband had a role to play in this. After Renee asked me for the divorce and laid out her terms, I discussed it with my lawyer. I also told him about Renee's plan. He suggested I play smart, and he helped me through it. He told me to inform Lily about Renee's plan, and on the other hand, asked me to delay the divorce as much as possible. I did it accordingly. Whenever Renee asked me about it, I used to stall it, saying I was busy and all that. When her patience ran thin, I said I was ready to sign the papers, but without any compensation. I sent her the revised terms where she gets to keep the car. The house in which she was living was mine. I agreed to let her to live there for 6 more months. That's it. Obviously, she didn't agree with that, and she demanded money. I kept laying it on the pretense of discussing it with the lawyer. She finally accepted my terms and signed the divorce papers. But that was not it. Actually, Lily's husband was completely in Lily's control. She made him do whatever she wanted. Her husband, in order to save his marriage, did whatever his wife said. They both hatched a plan to ruin Renee. Though her husband was equally involved in the affair with Renee, yet she held only Renee guilty of it and swore to destroy her, but forgave her husband. As a part of their plan, Lily's husband assured Renee that he would divorce Lily and marry Renee and pester her to get divorced first. We all had the same motive, not to let Renee have a penny from the divorce. I wanted to save my money and Lily wanted to ruin Renee, and her husband was obeying Lily for the sake of his marriage. Renee was stupid to fall for it. In order to marry Lily's husband, she accepted my terms and signed the papers. After all this was settled, it was time for Lily's husband to divorce Lily and marry Renee. But that's when they disclosed the truth. Renee was chatting with Lily's husband thinking it was him, but then she got a call from him and it was Lily on the other end. Renee was flustered to know the truth. She had lost everything. Like a defeated kid, she came running to me. She said, "You knew all this. You partnered with them to plot revenge on me." I said, yes, it saved me. My heart earned money. So why not? She tried to emotionally blackmail me and say, how could you betray me? You were the only one whom I thought would have my back, and you too did this to me. She was funny because she was the one who went behind my back, hooking up, and then chasing her friend's husband in order to secure her future. And now in between all this, I'm the bad guy for safeguarding my own interest. I told her that I did nothing wrong in saving my money. I have compensated her quite fairly. In fact, more than what she deserved. She shouldn't have been paid anything because she had cheated on me, but there she was driving the car bought by me, living in my house for more than a year, even after our separation. She said she would tell her daughter how I betrayed her and brought her to the streets. I said, sure, I can fill her up with the complete details of how her mother was showing her booty to secure her future. She left the conversation, but before that, she threatened to sue me for manipulating her and getting the divorce terms through forgery. I'm sure such kinds of charges don't exist, and now when the divorce is settled, there's hardly anything she could do. It all happened a week ago. I feel free more than ever. The divorce is done, and in a few months, I will get my house back from her day. I didn't want to take any revenge on her, and I still don't think I had taken any revenge. I was just safeguarding my money, and there's no harm in that. She or everyone can think whatever they want, but I don't care. I'm looking forward to my peaceful life and not getting into this serious relationship thing ever again. My wife's affair with her boss ended our marriage, so I made sure both of them got fired from their jobs. Then the AP stole my minivan, so I made him regret it. This is the first half of a decade-long tale that is currently resolving in a delightful way. Over a decade ago, I came home to find I was being moved out by my wife. We weren't in a great place, but I was blindsided. I was also served with a protection order that stated I could not come home without prior written permission. I had to go through my wife to see the kids, etc., and it was in effect for 90 days. I was devastated. A relative connected me with a bulldog of a lawyer. This lady was brilliant and no nonsense. She filed a rebuttal to the protection order, but told me these things take time, and we were unlikely to see a judge before the 90 days were up. She was very clear that I must follow the court order to the letter if there was any evidence, otherwise I'd be in an uphill battle if and when my wife renewed it. It only took one day before my now ex needed me to take the kids. I had crashed at a friend's house, so I had no place to take them. So we agreed I'd watch them at home. I waited a few blocks away while waiting for an email. Ex called me, and I reminded her of the details of the order and that I wouldn't come home until I had permission. This happened twice more than I waited down the street within the first week, so told her I wouldn't leave where I was staying until I had the email. It was about 20 minutes away. I texted her to remind her. The very next day she again didn't email. We were planning on me picking up the kids to take them to school since their school was only a few minutes away from my work. However, because I had not received written permission, I ran out of time to drive to pick up the kids and then make it to their school and work. She called furious that I wasn't there. I reminded her about the permission and that I was out of time. She ended up being very late to work that day. She then wanted to write me blanket permission to come and go as needed, but my lawyer advised against it. Follow the order. The culmination of this was a few weeks later when she again forgot to send permission. Her boyfriend was staying over, but didn't have his car with him. They both had to get to work, and that was the day I learned that he was her direct supervisor. Ex had to call a friend from work to pick up the kids and take them to school, and the friend found out. Of course, it got out at their work. Within a week of that, the boyfriend was fired over the relationship and my ex was suspended. By this time, I had my own place, so the kids ended up staying with me most days. I later learned that the protection order was the boyfriend's idea. Ex was quite mad about it as it turned into evidence that I wasn't a threat to her or the family, and the judge was quite harsh with her over it when we settled for support and parenting time. She called it intentional and harmful parental alienation. Part 2. Same day. This is the second part that was removed from Pro Revenge. I'll maybe fix it later there. This is the second half of a decade-long tale that is currently resolving in a delightful way. A decade ago, my then-wife, now ex-wife, began a relationship with the guy and kicked me out of my house. The boyfriend was instrumental in blindsiding me and planning on how to keep me from my own kids. Ever since, I've kind of hated him. I've always been polite and respectful with boyfriend because he'd become my kid's stepdad, but I swore if I ever had the chance I'd get back at him. I figured it would be something petty, but then he'd gift-wrapped my revenge and I've been running with it for almost 3 weeks now. My kids are mostly grown now, some in university, some in grades 11 to 12. The uni kids live with me while the high schools still go back and forth with their mom. I'm also remarried now. My wife and I each have our own vehicles, but my wife owns and insures a minivan for when we are all going somewhere together. The kids are free to use it too as only one has a car. We only have one set of keys, so I put an AirTag on it. It's a little transponder that tracks its location. I put it on there in case the keys were lost. About 3 weeks ago, one of my older kids took the van out for the night, but ended up staying at his mom's on the couch. Around 7 a.m. the next day, another kid asked to use the van. I pinged the AirTag only to find out it was hours away in an industrial section of another town. I was quite concerned why my kid was out there. I called him up and he was at his mom's where he said he'd be. He had no idea the van was missing. I called the police and gave them the location of the van. Within 20 minutes, they had stopped the van and the driver said he had permission to use it. Lo and behold, it's my ex-wife's boyfriend. The police weren't very interested in detaining him as it would be easier for him to just drive the van back to our town and we get sorted out here. However, it wasn't my van nor was he listed on the insurance to drive it. I asked that it be impounded. In Canada, we can't press charges, but I was adamant that this was theft and I wasn't going to let it go. Since the guy was out of town with no ride, the police did end up detaining him probably because it was easier. I was given info for the yard where the van was impounded. Since we had the next day off, my wife and I drove out to the yard to pick it up. When we got there, I first checked for damage since it was sitting a little low. Nothing outside. When I checked inside, I found that it was loaded with industrial fasteners and cable. Think seismic mitigation. Turns out, boyfriend used my wife's van to pick up stuff for work. My wife turns on her heels and walks to the office. I had to jog to keep up. She asks who has access to the van. They have the only set of keys, so my wife is assured only her or me. At this point, I get where she's going with this. I instruct them that no one accessed the van but us. I had $35 with me, so I gave it to them as a tip. They promised me that no one would get in there, and they actually moved the van into a secured area within the yard. Then, we went home without the van. We weren't even home from the long drive when I got the first text from boyfriend about getting the equipment. I explained that we left the van as there were expenses we were not going to pay. Towing, impounding fees, daily storage. I told him that he'd have to pay for them before I pick up the van. He was super mad and swore he'll pay me back. I said no way. Within an hour, I got a call from his boss. They need the equipment ASAP for a time since they had a job. I explained that it was impounded and that I won't have time to get it until next week now, and it has to be paid in advance. Boss swears up and down at me. I calmly explained that I didn't steal a vehicle to transport his stuff. Boss was having none of that, so I said I won't tolerate the abuse and hung up. Then I blocked him and his company on every platform I'm reachable on. And that was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've been able to make excuses every single time boyfriend tries to arrange picking up the van. Often because the kids don't have the van, so I have to drive them. Boss has gotten through a few times using other numbers and sent a ton of emails that I ignore. But I did reply and explain that both my wife and I need about 4 hours to do the round trip and then it needs to be paid for ahead of time. And it's added up. $25 a day for secure storage plus towing and impounding fees, etc. Plus I wanted to be paid for the fuel before used as well as our travel. Boyfriend and I agreed on the standard 58 cents per kilometer, and so the boss e-transferred us for the total cost of our driving. By now the van has made 1 trip and her car has done 2. It came to almost $600. So on Friday it finally happened. My wife and I drove out and picked up the van. It was prepaid and ready to be released. I dropped off a 12-pack of beer at the office when I picked up the keys and went to grab the van. However, I wasn't going to transport boss and boyfriend stuff, so I arranged for it to be held at the yard at the same rate as a vehicle. Unloaded it, and left right before it closed for the weekend. I got a call from boyfriend asking when he can come by with a work truck to get the stuff. I told him it's still at the impound almost 2 hours away, and the office opens Monday at 9. There was only silence on the other end, so I hung up after about 10 seconds. Through this, I've been getting vague updates from my ex, who I've got a good relationship with now. She was living with boyfriend and was clear with me that any and all the consequences were squarely on him. He's kept his job but is missing the next pay increase and is not getting his year-end bonus. Ex had their way too short-staffed to let him go, but he's in the doghouse at home and at work. No word on criminal charges for taking the van, but Crown handles that, and I'm not suing in civil court. Let's see what top commenters say. Viper Bunny says, selfish people love to shoot themselves in the foot and claim you should have been there to stop them. You reap what you sow. Another comment goes like this. I hate that the kids were caught in the middle of the pissing contest she created, but gone to you for sticking it out and making her deal with the bed she made. I honestly hope the judge throws everything they can at her for weaponizing the system. I hope your attorney also uses this and anything else she happens to feed you as an ammunition as well. Good luck, and remember to document anything she says or does in writing.